Hello everyone, have a nice day. Today we will explore the moment James finally stops running and chooses to stand up against his own father. We'll follow his quiet return to the city, his secret investigation with Lynn inside the warehouse, and the emotional struggle between family loyalty, justice, and his love for Diep. If you find it interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos, and share your thoughts in the comments about what you would do in James's place. "I'm going to expose my father," James said. The words came out low, but they didn't shake. Afternoon heat pressed down on the tiny roadside drink stall, the tarpaulin above them sagging in the light. Across the plastic table, Lynn stared at him, fingers tightening around her glass of iced tea. "You're serious?" she whispered. "If you go against him, there's no way back." "I know," James replied. "That's why I came back." That sentence had been forming since that morning on a crowded bus heading toward the city. James sat near the back, one hand gripping the seat in front of him, the other holding a worn photograph of Diep. She stood in front of the bamboo house with a basket of vegetables in her arms, hair tied back, a soft and steady smile. The edges were bent from how often he had unfolded it just to see her face. His mother's voice wouldn't leave him. "If you keep running, you and Diep will never have peace. Sooner or later, the storm will catch up. The only way out is to face it." Those words had hurt more than any blow. Hiding in the forest had been his way to breathe, to pretend his father's darkness belonged to another world. Looking straight at it felt like walking out into a storm with no roof above his head. But after the sting, something else settled in his chest, a calm, stubborn resolve. James traced the curve of Diep's smile with his thumb. "Just wait for me," he murmured to the photo. "Let me finish this, then I'll come back to you, I promise." By late morning, the bus rolled into a small station on the edge of the city. James stepped down, slung his bag over his shoulder, and walked away without glancing toward his family home or the company building with his father's name on it. Instead, he slipped into a quiet neighborhood where no one knew his face. Before noon, he had rented a tiny room above a grocery shop. A thin mattress, a wobbly table, one chair, a dusty window looking over a narrow alley. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He splashed cold water onto his face, then met his own gaze in the cracked mirror. His eyes were ringed with tiredness, but clearer than before, like someone who had finally picked a side. James sat at the table, pulled a notebook from his bag, and opened it. On the first line he wrote, pressing each stroke into the paper, "Everything I know about Father's business." The pen moved faster after that. He listed unusual deliveries and late-night shipments, managers who stiffened at his father's name, addresses of warehouses, dates that felt wrong, fragments of conversation that had never left his memory. With every line, the notebook felt heavier beneath his hand. It still wasn't enough to bring down a powerful man, but it was the first crack. By mid-afternoon, he closed the notebook and rested his palm on the cover. If he wanted real evidence, he needed eyes inside the warehouse, someone who knew its rhythm better than he did now. He already knew who that was. Lynn. She had worked under him before everything collapsed. She knew where the trucks came in, which corners people avoided, which managers liked to talk when they thought no one was listening. More than that, she was one of the few people he still trusted. So he had sent a short message, a time, a place, no explanation. And now, here they were, facing each other across the plastic table while the afternoon pressed close around them. "If this is about the warehouse," Lynn said at last, "I've seen things. Trucks with no labels, crates everyone pretends not to see. But James, it's dangerous. You know who stands behind it." "I know," he said. His throat tightened, but he didn't look away. "It's my father." The words landed between them like broken glass. "For years, I pretended not to see," he continued. "I told myself there had to be a reason, but there isn't. Wrong is wrong, no matter whose name is on the office door." Lynn's gaze flicked toward the industrial area, then back to him. The hum of distant engines suddenly felt louder. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "You're there every day," James said. "You see the goods, you hear the managers. I need you to watch every strange delivery, the time, the number of trucks, where they're stored, who is always there when they arrive. And if my father comes in person, I need to know how long he stays, who he talks to, anything he says that feels wrong. Write it all down. Even a few words could matter later." Her fingers tightened around her glass. "If they notice I'm watching them, I could lose my job, or worse." "I know," he said softly. "Don't be reckless. Do your normal tasks. Just look a little closer, listen a little sharper. If it ever feels too dangerous, you stop. Your safety comes first." He hesitated, then added, voice rough, "But if he keeps going, more people will be hurt, and I will never be able to look deep in the eye and say I chose what was easy." At the mention of Diep, something softer passed through his expression, but his jaw stayed locked. For a long moment, Lynn simply watched him. This wasn't the polite air she had once followed, or the man vanishing into the forest. This was someone ready to lose everything rather than close his eyes again. Finally, she let out a slow breath. "All right," she said. "I'll watch. I'll listen. I'll write what I can. But if it goes too far, you have to promise we'll find another way." "You have my word," James replied. They finished their drinks in silence. When he stood, he nodded toward the road leading to the warehouses. "Go back like it's just another ordinary day," he told her. "No one needs to know that from today on. Every move they make is being watched." Lynn picked up her bag and walked away, shoulders tense, but eyes steadier, blending into the stream of workers heading toward the industrial zone. James stayed behind a moment longer, staring at his own hand on the table. It was trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of the choice he had finally made. The quiet war had begun. The next few days stretched thin, like a wire pulled tight. Every morning, Lynn went to the warehouse as if nothing had changed. She clocked in, greeted coworkers, and pushed heavy crates across the yard. From the outside, she was just another worker in a faded uniform. Only she and James knew that every step she took now carried extra weight. One blazing afternoon, a truck rolled into the yard. Its license plate was smeared with dust, the crates inside stacked unevenly, marked only with rough chalk symbols. "Put those over there," the manager ordered, pointing to a shadowed corner by the back wall. "And don't write this batch in the main book. I'll handle it myself." Lynn kept her head down, but her heart jolted. She watched from the corner of her eye as he pulled out a thinner notebook from his pocket, not the thick official record, but a second book he hid quickly whenever someone walked by. One book for the company, one book for the secrets. At lunch, while others laughed and complained about the heat, Lynn sat in a quieter corner with her bowl. She slipped a tiny folded scrap of paper from her pocket and wrote quickly, "Unlabeled truck." The manager said not to record it, using a separate notebook. Her hands trembled slightly as she folded the paper back up and hid it again. 2 days later, the air in the yard changed. A sleek black car rolled to a stop at the gate. Even before the door opened, everyone straightened. They knew that car. James's father stepped out, shirt crisp, expression calm. The manager rushed over, almost bowing as he led him into the office. The door closed with a soft, careful click. Lynn picked up a broom and moved toward the hallway near the office, sweeping slowly, pretending not to listen. She couldn't hear everything, but some phrases slipped out when their voices rose. "These shipments must not be on any official record. You know what happens if anyone traces this back. Keep the workers quiet." Each fragment slid under her skin like ice. That evening, when the heat finally eased, she met James again at the small drink stall. The tarpaulin above them flapped gently in the faint breeze. Their iced tea glasses sweated on the metal table. Lynn laid several folded scraps of paper in front of him. "This is what I saw," she said softly. "The strange truck, the second notebook, and your father came today." James's fingers stiffened for a moment before he picked up the notes. "He went there himself?" he asked. She nodded. "He told the manager to keep some shipments off the official record. He didn't say what was inside, but anyone listening would know it wasn't clean." James spread the scraps beside his notebook, eyes darkening as the pieces formed a clearer picture. "Thank you," he murmured. "This is real evidence. You did well." Lynn hesitated, then asked, "What about Fat? I see him with the managers sometimes. Do you want me to watch him too?" James looked up sharply at the name. Memories flickered of Fat's easy grin, their school days, the times he'd stood up for James without asking for anything back. "No," James said, firm. "Leave him out of this. If he's involved, I'll handle it. Until I know for sure, I don't want you pulling that thread." She studied him, then nodded slowly. "All right, I'll focus on the warehouse." They parted under the fading light, Lynn heading toward a crowded bus, James turning back toward his small rented room. That night, under the weak glow of a single bulb, James copied her notes into his own notebook. Unlabeled trucks hidden away. Manager keeping second, private record. Father visiting the warehouse, ordering certain shipments off the books. Line after line, the pages filled up. With each sentence, his chest tightened. He took Diep's photograph from his wallet and propped it against the notebook. Her gentle smile faced the growing list of evidence. "If I close my eyes now," he whispered, "I'll lose you, not because they take you away, but because I'll become someone you can't trust." By dawn, the notebook was half full, not just suspicions, but a pattern pointing steadily back to one man, his father. It still wasn't enough to destroy him overnight, but it was enough to stop hiding. The next morning, James stepped out into the pale light, bag over his shoulder, notebook tucked carefully inside. He didn't walk toward his family home. He didn't walk toward the warehouse. Instead, he headed toward the part of the city where people carried files instead of boxes, where narrow doors had small metal signs that read, "Inspection Office," "Complaints Department," "Investigation Unit." His heart pounded, but his steps stayed steady. He tightened his grip on the strap of his bag, thinking of his mother's trembling voice, of Lynn's quiet courage, of Diep waiting by the bamboo house, trusting him without knowing what he was about to do. "I won't run anymore," James whispered. Then he walked toward the doors that could bring his father down and finally expose the truth.
Cuối cùng, James dừng chạy trốn và trở về thành phố để âm thầm thu thập bằng chứng chống lại người cha quyền lực của mình. Được dẫn dắt bởi người mẹ và tình yêu của Diệp, anh thuê một căn phòng trọ nhỏ, ghi lại tất cả những gì anh nhớ về chuyến hàng bất hợp pháp của công ty nhà cấp dưới cũ Linh bí mật theo dõi nhà kho. Anh cẩn thận ghi lại từng chi tiết, dòng xé giữa ký ức về tình cảm quá khứ cha mình và tổn hại mà tội ác của ông gây ra, từ chối liên lụy đến người bạn cũ khác cho đến khi biết hoàn toàn bộ sự thật. Diệp cuối cùng cũng đến các cơ quan chính phủ để xử lý khiếu nại điều tra, quyết tâm vạch trần hành vi sai trái của cha mình, giành lại một phần tương lai nơi anh và Diệp có thể sống lương thiện.